Assalamualaikum, salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching World Today with me, SAHIH. The United States and Japan propose a UN Security Council resolution stressing that nations should comply with a treaty that bars putting nuclear weapons in space, a message that appeared aimed at Russia. A source said Washington believes Moscow is developing a space-based anti-satellite nuclear weapon whose detonation could disrupt everything from military communications to phone-based ride services.
Russia's nuclear threats, let alone any use of nuclear weapons in the context of the situation in Ukraine, are absolutely unacceptable. North Korea has advanced its nuclear and missile activities. It launched ballistic missile yesterday in violation of multiple Security Council resolutions. Such activities by North Korea threaten the peace and stability of the region and the international community. It is totally unacceptable.
Russia, a party to the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, has previously said it opposes deploying nuclear weapons in space. Russia's defense minister has also denied it is developing such a weapon.
Distinguished ministers.
Earlier, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres invokes Oscar-winning film Oppenheimer as he warns that the world faces the highest risk of nuclear war in decades.
Humanity cannot survive a sequel of Oppenheimer. Voice after voice, alarm after alarm, survivor after survivor are calling the world back from the brink. And what is the response? States possessing nuclear weapons are absent from the table of dialogue. Investments in the tools of war are outstripping investment in the tools of peace. Arms budgets are growing, while diplomacy and development budgets are shrinking.
Your presence today.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has overseen firing drills by artillery units in the western region involving super-large multiple rocket launches, according to state-run broadcaster KRT. The North official news agency KCNA also released still photographs of Kim watching the drills and said they were conducted on Monday. The drills were aimed at testing the real war capabilities of 600mm multiple rocket launches and improving the operators' combat morale and readiness posture. The report of drills came a day after South Korea and Japan reported North Korea's launch of several short-range ballistic missiles into the sea, its first such missile test in about 2 months. Kim called for modernizing and scaling up artillery forces, highlighting the rocket launchers' strategic duties as the core central striking means in war preparations. Pyongyang has broken with decades of its inter-Korean policy, scrapping a military pact and declaring the South a hostile enemy state. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida condemned North Korea after the country's Coast Guard reported that Pyongyang launched multiple ballistic missiles early morning on Monday. The Coast Guard later confirmed that missiles from the north fell outside Japan's exclusive economic zone area. Speaking in a parliament session, Kishida described North Korea's action as unacceptable as it threatened the peace and security in the region and the international community.
北朝鮮は本年に入ってからも高い頻度で弾道ミサイル発射を繰り返しています。一連の北朝鮮の行動は我が国、地域および国際社会の平和と安全を脅かすものであり、断じて容認することはできません。
North Korea's military has been conducting exercises using conventional weapons in recent weeks, often personally overseen by the isolated state's leader Kim Jong-un. The show of force by Pyongyang comes just after the militaries of South Korea and the United States finished 10 days of large-scale annual joint military drills last Thursday. A day after securing a new 6-year term, Russian President Vladimir Putin appeared briefly at an open-air concert on Red Square on Monday to mark the 10th anniversary of Russia's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. The annexation of the Black Sea Peninsula was a precursor to Moscow's seizure of 4 other Ukraine regions in 2022 that it has declared parts of Russia in actions condemned as illegal by most countries at the United Nations. Putin told a large flag-waving crowd that the return of those other regions to Russia had turned out to be much more grave and tragic than Crimea's, but it had been accomplished. 2 years after Putin launched what he calls his special military operation, Russia has not fully captured the 4 regions, but voting in Russia's 3-day presidential election that ended on Sunday was held in the parts of Ukraine that its forces control. Ukraine said the exercise was illegal and void. Putin said officials had reported early on Monday that rail links had been restored from Rostov in southern Russia to Russian-controlled cities of Donetsk, Mariupol and Donetsk, and further upgrades would follow. President Joe Biden signed a new executive order on Monday that expands U.S. government research on women's health while pledging $200 million next year to better understand issues including sexual and reproductive conditions. Biden is also ordering his administration to report on progress they are making to erase gender gaps in research and to study how to use artificial intelligence to improve women's health research. Biden said that he's going to make sure women's health is prioritized across the government. The National Institute of Health is also launching a new effort around menopause and the treatment of menopausal symptoms that will identify research gaps and work to close them, it says. Biden has asked Congress for $12 billion in new funding for women's health research, but new financial commitments are hard to pass in a politically divided legislature during an election year. The administration will spend the $200 million investment announced on Monday during the 2025 fiscal year, which starts this October, if Congress grants the funding levels Biden has requested. The Democrat is seeking another 4-year term in November's election against Republican candidate former President Donald Trump. Famine is expected between now and May in the north of the Gaza Strip, where 300,000 people remain trapped by fighting. A report by an international food insecurity watchdog said on Monday that the number of people across Gaza facing catastrophic hunger and starvation has risen to 1.1 million, about half the population. The analyst said that the famine could still be avoided if Israel and Hamas agreed to an immediate truce and aid organizations gain full access. Famine in an area is accessed at least 20% of the population suffering extreme food shortages, with 1 in 3 children acutely malnourished and 2 people out of every 10,000 dying daily from starvation or malnutrition and disease. In late December, the IPC said the situation in Gaza had already exceeded the 20% threshold. Assessing the remaining 2 famine threshold can be particularly difficult in a war zone. UN officials have said that Gaza's health system has basically collapsed with very few hospitals operational. While a declaration of famine does not trigger any formal response, it can help focus global attention on how to help. But the United Nations has warned that once a famine is declared, it is usually too late to save many people. Meanwhile, fighting raged in and around the besieged Gaza Strip's largest hospital complex, where Israel said its forces killed and arrested Hamas fighters as Palestinians fled by foot under heavy bombardment. The Zionist force said more than 20 fighters were killed inside the Al-Shifa complex and another 20 were killed in the surrounding area. Troops also arrested more than 200 suspects. The Israeli army identified one of the fatalities as Hamas internal security official Faik al-Mahbub. A Gaza police source confirmed his death and said he was a brigadier general in the force. Israeli troops previously raided Al-Shifa in November, sparking an international outcry. European Union foreign ministers agreed in principle on Monday to impose sanctions on Israeli settlers for attacking Palestinians in the West Bank. The EUC also agreed to add further sanctions on members of Palestinians' freedom fighter group Hamas. The decision marked the first time that the EU's 27 member countries had agreed to sanction violent Israeli settlers, following in the footsteps of the United States and Britain. At the same meeting, ministers agreed to impose sanctions on people and organizations that bear responsibility for the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said ministers from the EU's 27 member states agreed to sanction about 30 individuals and entities, which he did not identify, that were responsible for the murder of Alexei Navalny. Borrell also said the minister expressed strong support for taking the revenues from frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine, though he said there wasn't unanimity on the question. Coming up next, Sweden ushers in new era with accessions into NATO. Poland and German battle groups will join Europe's Rapid Reaction Forces in July as part of the EU Strategic Compass Plan. The Strategic Compass is the European Union's equivalent to a military doctrine similar to the US-led NATO strategic concept, which outlines the alliance goals. Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz made the announcement after a meeting with his German counterpart Boris Pistorius in Nowice near Warsaw. 2,500 soldiers from Poland and 2,500 from Germany will be ready for rapid response in line with the objectives of the Strategic Compass Plan. Both countries will also activate an armored coalition on 26 March to assist Ukraine.
Nobody really knows whether or when Russia will anybody attack in Europe, but what we really see is that it is able and willing to attack Ukraine and is doing it now for more than 2 years. So what we have to learn all together as allies in Europe is to be prepared for any threat. This is a task we have to do, and this is what we are working on.
The Council of European Union on Monday ratified an agreement to increase the EU support for Ukraine's armed forces by 5 billion euros through a dedicated assistance fund. The NATO flag was raised outside Swedish Parliament on Monday in a ceremony attended by King Carl Gustaf and Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. Sweden officially joined NATO on 7th March, 2 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine forced it to rethink its national security policy and conclude that support for the alliance was the country's best guarantee of safety. Before the flag was raised alongside the Swedish and European Union flags, King Carl Gustaf said it would be a symbolic gesture showing Sweden's willingness to, together with the other NATO countries, safeguard peace and freedom, not only for those who live there today, but also for future generations. For NATO, the accessions of Sweden and Finland, which shares a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia, are the most significant additions in decades. It is also a blow for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has sought prevent any further strengthening of the alliance. Sweden will benefit from the alliance's common defense guarantee, under which an attack on one member is regarded as an attack on all. 14 bodies were found in an affluent suburb of Haiti's capital as international efforts accelerated to fill a political vacuum created by weeks of gang violence that has forced the impending departure of the Prime Minister. Witnesses said gang members attacked a bank, a gas station and homes in the area. The bodies of the victims, who had been shot earlier in the morning, were removed from the main road leading into the suburb and from outside a gas station. This comes amid an escalation in gang violence amid a political impasse that saw the United Nations as well as US and Canadian embassies withdraw staff in recent days. Meanwhile, efforts are continuing to organize Nairobi's security mission to back up Haiti's overwhelmed police force. In a related development, Dominican Republic's security on their northwestern border with Haiti remained high. Dominican soldiers guarded as Haitians carrying baskets and goods hoping to go to the Dajabon binational market queued to enter the country, going through biometric checkpoints. Dajabon Senator David Sosa said most people crossing to the binational market only want to acquire goods and not to stay in the Dominican Republic. Artificial intelligence semiconductor powerhouse NVIDIA unveiled a flagship AI chip, the Blackwell B200, as Chief Executive Jensen Huang kicked off the company's annual developer conference on Monday. NVIDIA's new chip and software announcement at GTC 2024 will help determine whether the company can maintain its leadership position as a dominant seller of the tools needed to fuel the past year's frenzy around AI. Nvidia dominates the data center AI chip market, capturing roughly an 80% share last year. The B200 takes two chips, the size of Nvidia's previous offerings, and binds them together into a single chip. The new chip has 208 billion transistors, more than double the 80 billion on the company's previous chip. All of those transistors can access the memory attached to the chip at nearly the same time, improving productivity. Nvidia said major customers including Amazon.com, Alphabet's Google, Meta Platforms, Microsoft, OpenAI, Oracle and Tesla are expected to use the new chip. Technology shares rose on Monday as investors gear up for Nvidia's Global Artificial Intelligence Conference for Developers. Colombian police have seized more than 7 million gallons of crude oil in raids on illegal refineries in an operation targeting production of bootleg fuel in Norte de Santander province. The fuel is refined from crude oil stolen from pipelines by criminal gangs and is a key ingredient in cocaine production. The crude oil can also be mixed with gasoline or diesel and used to run machinery and illegal mining operations. The operation took place in Tibu, an area in Norte de Santander, close to Colombia's border with Venezuela.
La desmantelación de 13 piscinas de almacenamiento ilícito, 5 refinerías artesanales, la incautación de 7.294.000 galones de hidrocarburo tipo crudo y 4.250 galones de hidrocarburo refinado. De igual forma, se realizó la destrucción controlada de 17 tanques, donde se realizaría el procesamiento artesanal.
The production of the bootleg fuel, known as patigrillo or cricket's food, due to its greenish hue, is a major problem in Colombia where thousands of barrels of oil are stolen each day. In Argentina, unions and leftist groups led a march to protest President Javier Milei's government's cut on social spending, which resulted in face-off with the riot police. In Buenos Aires, the raid police confronted the march blocked roads, spraying tear gas and impeding them from moving forward. Libertarian Milei, trying to control rampant inflation, has implemented austerity measures, including painful cuts to state spending, trimming subsidies and pruning the public sector. Hundreds of revelers in a central Greek town threw flour on each other as part of an old carnival tradition. The flour war pits revelers against each other with the tons of cooking flour tinted with food coloring. The annual event in Galaxy City, about 200 kilometers west of Athens, marked the end of the carnival season and the start of the 40-day Lent period until the Orthodox Easter. The tradition is believed to have evolved from the 19th century during the period when Greece was occupied by the Ottoman Empire. Still to come in sports, Nottingham Forest docked 4 points after league rules violation. We begin with updates on football, the English Premier League. Nottingham Forest have become the second club to be deducted points for breaching the league's profitability and sustainability rules PSR after being docked 4 points over their finances on Monday. The Premier League said in a statement Nottingham Forest was referred to an independent commission on 15 January following an admission by the club that it had breached the relevant PSR threshold of £61 million by £34.5 million. Clubs are usually allowed maximum losses of £105 million over a 3-year assessment period, but this is reduced by £22 million per season for any seasons within the period spent in the Championship. The immediate loss of points mean they drop below Luton Town into the Premier League's relegation zone. Forest said they are extremely disappointed with the decision, which they say raises issue of concern for all aspirant clubs. Nottingham Forest have 7 days to appeal, but it is understood that the club have yet to decide whether to do so and are consulting with their lawyers. Still on football, La Liga, Real Madrid have filed a complaint against the referee who handled their game at Osasuna on Saturday for not including alleged racist insults aimed at their forward Vinicius Jr. in his match report. The 23-year-old Brazil international, who scored twice as La Liga leaders Real won 4-2 at the El Sadar Stadium, has been subjected to racial abuse on several occasions in Spain. Real have also extended the complaint they filed with the state prosecutor's office over hate and discrimination offences after alleged racist chanting by Atletico Madrid and Barcelona fans directed at the Brazil forward. Real Madrid took the opportunity to again condemn the violent attacks of racism, discrimination and hatred towards their player. The club also demands that necessary measures must be taken once and for all to eradicate the violence that Vinicius Jr. has been suffering. Over in the United States, Argentina captain Lionel Messi is out of this month's friendlies due to a hamstring injury. The Inter Miami superstar was due to line up for the world champions in friendlies against El Salvador in Philadelphia on Friday before facing Costa Rica in Los Angeles on 26 March. However, the 36-year-old forward has not recovered after tweaking a hamstring during Miami's 3-1 victory over Nashville in the CONCACAF Champion Cup last week. Messi, who was substituted just after halftime in the win over Nashville, missed Miami's win over DC United in Washington on Saturday. Messi is the latest absence for Lionel Scaloni's side following injuries to AS Roma forward Paulo Dybala, Bayern Leverkusen midfielder Ezequiel Palacios and Bournemouth defender Marcos Senesi. Former Brazil and AC Milan striker Robinho is due in a Brazilian court on Wednesday, where it will be decided if he should serve in his home country a 9-year jail term imposed by an Italian court for a rape conviction. Italy's request that Robinho serve a prison sentence in Brazil has been analysed by the Justice Ministry Department of Asset Repatriation and International Legal Cooperation. Robinho, whose full name is Robson de Souza, lives in Brazil and has always denied the charges. In 2023, Italy's Justice Ministry had issued an international arrest warrant for the player after the country's top court confirmed his conviction for rape. However, the South American country does not extradite its nationals, which would mean Robinho would only face arrest if he travelled abroad. A Milan court in 2017 found Robinho and 5 other Brazilians guilty of raping a woman after plying her with alcohol in a disco. The conviction was confirmed by an appeal court in 2020 and validated by Italy's Supreme Court last year. Final item on cycling, Hannes Becking and Wood Elliman from Bath Megamo won the opening stage of the 2024 Cape Epic in the men's elite race, while Anne Terpstra and Nicole Collar from Ghost Factory Racing triumphed in the women's category on Monday. Becking and Ailman crossed the finish line in 3 hours, 38 minutes and 48 seconds. They were 2 seconds ahead of Nino Schurter and Sebastian Finney from the Team World Bicycle Relief after a sprint finish decided matters following an 88-kilometer ride along Tulbagh in South Africa's Western Cape. Schurter and Finney kept hold of their overall leaders' yellow jerseys 1 minute and 10 seconds ahead of Toyota Specialized 91's Matt Beers and Howard Gross, who finished the stage third. In the women's elite race, Terpstra and Collar edged Candice Leal and Mona Mitterwalner from Cannondale Factory Racing in another sprint finish to maintain their overall lead. Terpstra and Collar lead Leal and Mitterwalner in the general classification by 1 minute and 5 seconds, with Sofia Gomez Villafane and Samara Shepard of Toyota Specialized 91 third on the day and third overall, a further 6 seconds behind the leaders.
Hai, saya Syah.
Saya Hanura.
Kami akan kongsikan cara mendaftar padu. Jom ikuti langkah ini.
Langkah pertama, isi maklumat asas seperti nama penuh, nombor kad pengenalan, poskod, nombor telefon dan email. Langkah kedua, masukkan kod one time password OTP yang telah diterima melalui SMS atau email yang telah didaftarkan. Langkah ketiga, di bahagian ini anda perlu tetapkan kata laluan mengikut kriteria yang telah ditetapkan.
Jangan lupa anda perlu membuat pengesahan identiti. Langkah pertama, ambil gambar MyCard bahagian hadapan. Langkah kedua, ambil gambar MyCard bahagian belakang. Langkah ketiga, ambil gambar swafoto atau selfie pemilik MyCard. Sila tunggu sekejap dan sekiranya keluar paparan ini, pengesahan identiti anda telah berjaya.
Jangan lupa ya, kita kena kemas kini, okey? Di bahagian ini, anda perlu kemas kini maklumat asas, alamat kediaman, maklumat pendidikan, maklumat isi rumah, pekerjaan, pendapatan, komitmen dan bantuan. Sebelum membuat perakuan, pastikan butiran yang diperlukan diisi dengan lengkap.
Tahniah, anda telah berjaya mendaftar akaun padu.
Awak tu dah daftar ke belum?
Nak pergi daftar lah ni.
That wraps up this edition of World Today. In our top story, US and Japan urges nations not to put nuclear weapons in space. Till next time, I'm SAHIH. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching.